Okay. Well, David, I'm so happy to have you here and just having a conversation with me. I wanted to talk to David Feuz. Everyone, this is David Feuz, and we've known each other for a while now for a couple of reasons that we'll talk about. And wanted to just kind of pick at your brain a little bit. You have such an interesting career arc that is a little unique to our industry. So I really just wanted to have a chance to talk to you about that. And so I'll start by saying David served in the military. So in honor of that, I'm wearing our flag today. And so David, tell me about like where you started and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I'd love to, and thanks for having me on. It's been a fun, I don't know, at this point, maybe 7, 8 years that I've been a part of the NANP, and it's fun to always connect. And so, yeah, I think my career story is unique, but I think there's a lot of aspects to my story that people can connect with and resonate with. I went to college, undergrad, college degree, went to get a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I was a college athlete. Didn't really know what I wanted to do after college, and so always very patriotic, came from a very patriotic family, and I decided to serve in the military. And so I joined the US Coast Guard, served almost a decade, search and rescue, law enforcement, security operations up and down the East Coast. Absolutely loved it, but I realized that at a certain point I needed a change of pace. I wanted to help folks in a different way. And I'd always had a passion, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit, how I got into holistic nutrition. I always had a passion for food and nutrition. And so yeah, that's really where the second part of my career started, right? The first part is really the military. And, the second part, I decided to go back for a master's in functional and integrative nutrition at Maryland University of Integrative Health. And I think my big tip here as I tell my story is the moment I decided to switch my career and go back to school, I didn't wait until school was over to start building my new career. I started right away alongside my degree program. And the master's program was fantastic. I started out as a certified personal trainer. I networked as much as I could, picked up the phone as much as I could, applied to things that didn't even seem interesting while I was still in school, and it led me to Dr. Chris Diadamo over at University of Maryland's Medical School and Center for Integrative Medicine. And he said, "You are a terrible fit for this research intern position." I had applied for it, but we're starting one of the country's first mandatory nutrition programs for medical students. Do you want in? You want to help? And because I picked up that phone, because I took action. I ended up being a instructor for medical students, teaching culinary medicine for 2 years. And that's really what created this passion of teaching of mine and educating. And so I did that. I was a certified personal trainer, graduated, and that's where I knew, okay, I want to do more teaching. And so that's where I kind of found the NANP too. And I ended up as an adjunct at Purdue Global. I found Purdue Global. They were hiring. They were on a few different sites right around the time I was graduating. It seemed like a great fit. They had a holistic nutrition aspect to their program, which I was very passionate about. Another teaching assistant position came about from another functional and integrative school out in Arizona, now known as Sonoran University of Health Sciences. I was a teaching assistant for about 2 years. Made some great connections. I still keep in touch with my old boss there. And let's see, started a private consulting company. So I had more of a portfolio career coming out of the military, right? Because you have to start at the bottom again, and some folks find that discouraging, but I think that creates just a fun opportunity. You get to dabble in a few areas. You get to get your feet wet, see what you like, see what takes off, and then as things take off, you can kind of get rid of some other duties. And so, the teaching assistant role, I decided to shed that, focus on Purdue Global. I absolutely love Purdue. We'll talk a lot about Purdue Global today. What a great place Purdue Global is. And, the private consulting career has great. I pivoted just from seeing clients to seeing more so practitioners. We'll talk about that in a little bit, and training practitioners for their career. And yeah, and then the department chair role opened up at Purdue Global, and the school has been such a good fit for me and my family. And I knew I just wanted to continue to support students and support faculty and, just build a strong team for our students at Purdue Global. And so it was a great fit. And I've been doing the department chair. I've been serving as department chair of our nutrition and health and wellness programs for about 3 years now at Purdue Global. And so that's my career story. I'm sure we'll come back to bits and pieces of it as we chat today.
Absolutely. Well, it's so interesting. I didn't realize, excuse me, that you'd been in the Coast Guard. What an interesting job that
Yeah.
must have been. And what I really love about, and we've talked about, you and I, we've talked about this before, is how you just started knocking on doors. You just started knocking on door. That is so important. I feel like sometimes there's a real hesitation in our industry to just start hammering, And I was so impressed by your proactive approach of, yeah, I'm going to get on it. Like I'm doing this, right? And I really respect that. And I hope that those of you who are watching are paying attention because where David is at in his career, it didn't fall into his lap. Like he got after it. He went after it actively. And that's what we have to do in our industry. In any industry, you have to create your own opportunities. And then when you get in, like what happened with you, they said, well, this isn't a fit for you, but what do you think of this? I mean, that probably really was that was the launch for you, right?
It,
Um,
it really was. Just to get a little teaching experience under my belt, a lot of folks, a lot of places, in order to be a teacher or a professor, they want to see a little bit of experience. And so picking up that phone, which most people probably would have said, I'm a little too busy, right? We're all so busy these days. But, you know, we'll talk so much about this, but my biggest tip I can ever give anybody switching careers or starting off in this industry is the mindset that you need to actually be successful, and viewing things as opportunities rather than a time commitment or an expense or a frustration, viewing things as an opportunity, a phone call or being part of a professional organization or even taking an unpaid internship for a little bit. It's an opportunity. So yeah,
Absolutely.
it's been a fun ride, the career. It really has.
I bet it has.
Yeah.
Probably a little rocky here and there, but
Yeah,
here you are. And so in your role at Purdue, because now you're the department chair, right? I
that's right.
mean, you probably have the ability to look at our industry from a really unique perspective. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of where the industry is headed, what the future might look like for people who are getting into the industry, people that you're teaching and formulating programs for? Like, where do you see us? Where's the trajectory?
Yeah, the nutrition industry is really, I think it's an exciting place, and it can also be a little confusing for folks because, as we both know, nutrition is regulated at the state level. And so opportunities might differ per state, right? For instance, in some states you can go and work for, WIC as a non-dietitian, right? Other states you have to be a registered dietitian to work for WIC. So that's some of our students over at Purdue Global have landed jobs with WIC, and then there's states where, you have to be a registered dietitian. But, I think the industry, as we see, as you guys are always on top of this, more and more states are recognizing holistic nutrition professionals. I think I don't know, a few years ago there might have been 12 exclusive scope states or something, and now we're down to 3 or 4. And so the ability to practice holistic nutrition is growing. And, I think the opportunities, there's so many pathways in nutrition. It's such a diverse field, you know, and it really just depends on what your interests and what your passions and what your goals are. Sometimes it makes sense to go and get a master's degree depending on what your goals are. For instance, teaching at the college level, like that was one of my goals. But we see a lot of our graduates do very well over at Purdue Global, being employed with companies, and then others choose to go on for a grad degree as well. And we have a very large military population at Purdue Global as well. But it's an exciting field, and I think, you know making those connections and being part of organizations that like the NANP that really pool all the companies and the schools together that value holistic nutrition professionals can help and help alleviate a little of that frustration and discouragement. Sometimes folks, they just Google jobs and it might seem like you need this credential or this degree. And they don't rely on job boards. Our Center for Career Advancement, for example, over at Purdue Global, does a fantastic job helping students go from, student to industry professional, prepare them for the industry. And so just utilizing your resources, utilizing the organizations you can be a part of, reaching out to old faculty members, students, all these things can help you.
I so agree. I so agree. Whatever resources you have at your fingertips, use them. NANP's got a career center, and some of those jobs will say registered dietitian, but you know what? If you apply for that job, and especially if you have the BCHN credential, they're going to look at you. They're going to take a look at you. And we've had people who've been hired specifically because they carried that credential. You have that credential, right, David?
Yeah, I do. I've been board certified in holistic nutrition for a number of years now, and it's been fantastic. It's when I was seeing more clients, it definitely showcased to the clients, my experience and training in holistic nutrition, which is a little different. And I think more and more clients out there, for those of you that want to see individual clients, they're looking for that. They want a different approach, right? They don't want a general, just cookie cutter, nutrition advice. This works for everybody. They want someone to get to know them, get to know their preferences and their culture and their lifestyle and their barriers and help them overcome some of the challenges and consider their unique biochemistry. And so I think clients really appreciate it. They're looking for something like that. And it's also I've seen it help with setting folks up for jobs as well with my work at Holistic Consulting, you know?
Yeah. Tell us about holistic consulting. First of all, I'm so curious
Yeah.
because you mentioned earlier that you kind of went from seeing clients to seeing practitioners. What was that genesis? How did you get from one to the other?
Yeah, I met Sean, the co-founder of Holistic Consulting in graduate school. And we're going through graduate school, probably two of the only guys, right? It was mostly girls, going through graduate school together, and we're getting to the end of our graduate program and our master's program. I did go on for a doctorate as well, but this was during my master's program. And we realized that there were so many folks around us that were about to graduate, and then we did graduate, and they had all this passion and all this knowledge, all these skills, all this potential to change lives, do something with their career, switch careers, make a difference, and nobody really knew how to pivot careers or start a business or maybe get their supervised practice hours for the BCHN or the CNS credential, which I also hold. And so there were just a lot of question marks with getting credentialed and starting a business. And wait a minute, it seems like you can only get a job if you're a registered dietitian. And so a lot of folks just fell back on their old career and didn't do anything with their new degree, and it was really sad to see. And I told Sean right away, I said, I think we can do something here just to genuinely help people. Sean is a serial entrepreneur, also ex-military. He's owned quite a few companies, CrossFit gyms, swim schools, jiu-jitsu schools, an herbal program. I mean, virtual and brick and mortar. Sean's really good with business, helping folks set up private practices. And and so we did that. It was my business previously, and we shifted it. We changed the name. We turned it into Holistic Consulting. I brought him on, and yeah, we started helping new graduates and professionals, successfully switch careers. And it's just been amazing to see the the success stories of our members and just the outcomes. And we have over a dozen folks working for Dr. Josh Axe now over at the Health Institute, and they
Yeah.
each time they hire, they just beg us for more. The first person that went to work there, she applied for a sales position with Dr. Josh Axe. She said, "Do you think I should go for this?" I said, "Absolutely." I said, just get in with a company that has the same values as you, and we'll see what happens." And she did that. She knocked it out of the park. nutrition professional role popped up. You want to be a practitioner for us? And she said yes. And her BCHN, she was told the BCHN actually helped her stand out from hundreds of applicants there. I still remember that conversation I had with her. And then, yeah, I've just seen some, and then, we help folks get credentialed. I think so many folks, they want a really credible exam prep course for the BCHN, and we have that. We maintain that. We're updating it right now with the new questions from the new texts. We've had dozens of folks go through that exam prep course, and that's part of our mentorship program too. And the mentorship program includes a lot more than just the exam prep course. We're about to launch another cohort here in September. And you help folks get the 500 professional hours you need to be board certified in holistic nutrition, CEUs, so you can maintain that credential, make connections with dozens of other professionals across the country that are on the same pathway, um, and just, build a business if that's what you prefer, if that's your career goals. And so we've been doing a lot of good stuff, and it's been awesome to see. And we're actually expanding. We just brought on 2 mentorship coordinators and program managers. So it's been
That's
great.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And I do know that the people who go through your board exam prep perform very well on the board exam. A lot of people are so nervous about taking an exam like ours, and I
Yeah.
understand. I mean, it's a board exam. It should be difficult. It shouldn't be a slam dunk, you don't have to study. So we're very proud of the rigor of the exam, and I'm so happy that you guys are doing that work because we get questions about, how can I get a preparatory course? Does NANP offer it? And it's very frowned upon that the organization that's offering the exam also offer a prep course for it. So
Right.
ethically, we stay away from that. We try to be good, and we just send everybody over to you guys for that kind of help. So I'm really, really grateful for the work that you guys are doing over there and for your long-term partnership with the NANP. We greatly, greatly appreciate your support. So, David, sometimes we have people who are thinking about joining the NANP and they're a little bit on the fence and, gee, I don't know. What would you say to somebody who is looking at getting into this as a career, wants to be a holistic nutrition professional, but, gee, I don't know. I don't know if I should or not. I don't know if it'll be worth it. What would you say to that person?
It's scary to go through a career transition alone, I think. And it can be a lot harder if you go through it alone. And I see so much success in people that they surround themselves with a community and an organization to help them on that journey. You can look at things like the NAMP as as an expense, but it's really an opportunity, and it's up to that person to use the NAMP and leverage the resources and utilize it or as much as it can be to create opportunities. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but one of the first, I switched careers from the military, Purdue Global adjunct, teaching assistant, still a personal trainer, kind of doing a lot. And my next step was, all right, I'm going to the NAMP. I collected all of the schools, I think, just about all the schools, all the companies that are affiliated with the NAMP, because I knew that all these organizations and schools valued holistic nutrition. I reached out to every single one, dozens and dozens, introduced myself, said hi, talked a little bit about who I was, and just mentioned that, hey, I'd really be interested in, joining your team if an opportunity presented itself. I really value the mission that you're doing. And I got some emails back, and it led to a 12-month contract with the Nutrition Therapy Association, one of the NAMP schools. And they said, we'd love, after an interview, of course, we'd love for you to redesign our whole curriculum, be part of a team to redesign the curriculum. So I worked on that for 12 months, and that added to my resume and helped me make connections. And they were not advertising publicly. And I see this all the time where folks limit themselves to public advertisements and rather than reaching out to companies and introducing themselves and joining organizations. I think you need to play the long game when you're switching careers. A lot of folks want that quick win. I want a job paying this much tomorrow. And it's not likely. You have to play the long game, and it can be complicated for a little bit, obviously supporting yourself. And I know some folks that keep their old job and they slowly transition to the career, and then they switch to part-time old job as the new career kind of takes off, and it's a balance. But I think the folks that they value every conversation. I have folks that show up in our mentorship program meetings. They value every conversation. And sometimes those conversations lead to something so impactful, like an opportunity that just popped up, and then it changes the trajectory of their career. I've had folks join holistic consulting after getting laid off, trying to figure it out on their own, and then they join holistic consulting and the NANP, and now they work for the Health Institute through our referral because it's just through connections. And a lot of my positions came through connections, um, you know. And so I think play the long game, have the right mindset, look at things as an opportunity rather than a frustration or an expense or something like that, and just get out there and make connections. Talk to people about what's your career been like? What tips do you have? Do you know of any opportunities out there? Who can I email? I would say just bug all of your connections. That's what I did.
I love that. I love that you harvested essentially the resources from NANP. I think it's a brilliant idea. I'm one of those people. I was negotiating contracts at health plans at a very, very high level. I was making a very nice salary. I went from that to making $15 an hour at a maximum of 15 hours a week when I first started with NANP. And when the NANP job came along, I I almost couldn't believe my eyes because it was such a tie-in with what I had just come from. And it took a long time to build. But if when I left what I had been doing and switched over to holistic nutrition, someone had said to me, someday you're going to lead the NANP, I would have laughed. I like, no way, right? So you just don't know what's around the corner. I think that's really the biggest message that I have. And like you said, you know, have conversations. You don't know that the person that you're talking to didn't just come out of a meeting where they were talking about, gosh, we need somebody who has this set of skills and this set of skills and this set of
Yep.
skills. And then you have a conversation, and the next thing you know, you're having an interview. So I love that. I just love that. David, thank you so much for, I know what a busy guy you are. And I
You
really,
bet.
really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and share what you've done, what your career has been, what you see for our industry. You're definitely at the top. So hearing it come from you is very impactful. Is there anything I didn't ask you about that you'd like to say? Anything you want to bring up?
No, this has been a great conversation. And, if folks ever want to connect with me, we can put my email somewhere, I suppose. And if they'd like to, they can go to Holistic Consulting as well and talk to one of our coordinators or managers. And we'd love to have conversations, even if it's just to point you in the right direction.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. And thank you again for your service. And thank you to Sean for
Yeah.
his service.
Thank you so
All
much,
right.
Nicole.
Have a great day.